had a good week. Pardon the crammed area. I'm going to do 2 cameras today, so you can see what's going on with the cookie recipe I'm making. Just going to give you guys a minute to come in. I'm going to put the link to today's recipe in the chat. So I will be making classic peanut butter cookies. These are ones I've been making since I was a kid. I just got the recipe posted on my website yesterday. And I'll also put a link in here. If there's any products that we talk about, I'll pop them in my Amazon shop. So if you're interested in getting them, I get a lot of questions about some of the different items I have in my kitchen. So I'm always happy to help with recommendations. I did say peanut butter cookies. Good morning. Morning, afternoon, morning. It's morning. It's Friday. It's been a week. Welcome to all of you who are new. If you've been here before, just have some coffee while I go through the couple quick things. My name is Ashley. I write about food and recipes over at Big Flavors from a Tiny Kitchen, bigflavorstinyKitchen.com. I'm at Big Flavors on social media, on Instagram and Pinterest and all those places. On Twitter, I'm at Big Flavors blog. Most Fridays at 11 a.m. Eastern, I come on here and I show you guys how to make a recipe, start to finish. And today we're going to do peanut butter cookies because they're awesome and delicious, and the people at the bus stop today are going to luck out. So let's see. Next Friday, October 4th, I'll be back at 11 a.m. Not sure yet what I'm going to make. I'll probably do something savory since we're doing sweet today. And if you guys have been participating in the Big Flavors Freezer Challenge where you're cleaning out your freezer, let me know what you're making. I'd love to hear. So far I've used some shrimp and some chicken pieces. I made bone broth and I can't remember what else, but it's good. I'm making progress on the freezer. So I'm gonna start. Let me get my second camera going so you don't have to see like this hot mess over here. So did it go up? There we go. All right. So for these cookies, first I'm going to preheat the oven to 375. All right. A couple things to note. Somebody had asked me when I posted the recipe. Hi, Jennifer. Someone had asked me when I posted the recipe about using non-dairy milk. I'm pretty sure it would work fine. It's only 3 tablespoons of milk, so I feel like if you subbed, peanut milk would be probably great, but if you subbed any dairy-free milk, I think it should be all right. But definitely let me know if you try it. And if you did that, there's an egg in it, but aside from the milk and the egg, it's plant-based because there's no butter. I'm going to use shortening, and I like using vegetable shortening in these sticks. This one's Crisco. I don't know if other brands make them in sticks also, but usually they come in a tub. But it's cool. On here, it's got all the measurements on the side. So for this recipe, we need half a cup. So I'm just going to find the half a cup and just slice right down there. Makes it kind of easy for measuring. And then, at least with this particular brand, if you, it comes with 3 of these sticks. So 3 sticks and 1 lid. So save this lid. You can pop it back on, and you don't have to refrigerate it, but you can. So if you're making this recipe, make sure your shortening comes to room temperature first. So I'm going to put this in a bowl. I'm going to throw it with the wrapper. I'm going to put this in a bowl with some peanut butter. I'm using creamy peanut butter. I haven't tried it with chunky yet. I don't know how the texture would work, but I'm willing to try it. So 3/4 cup of creamy peanut butter. I usually use this. It doesn't really matter what brand, but I like ones that have been emulsified. So like the natural peanut butter, it kind of separates and you have to stir it, I think that would affect the texture of the cookies. And also that type of peanut butter, like we make peanut butter with just peanuts, but I feel like this also has some sugar added, and so while you could use the other type of peanut butter, you would probably have to increase the amount of sugar, and I don't know by how much, so you can experiment with it if you want, but I would recommend just getting some standard fare peanut butter. So 3/4 of a cup of peanut butter. So that was a quarter. I'll do a half. And I've been making these since I was a kid with my mom, and I just had been craving them recently, and I asked her if she had the recipe, and she did. It's not originally like a family recipe, but I've changed it around a bit and like fixed some of the measurements and directions, because like I feel like back in the day when people wrote recipes, it was like, they didn't specify a lot of things that are helpful now. So this part's a little messy. I also have not tried this with like sun butter. So if there was like a peanut allergy, I'm not sure how it would work. But I mean, sun butter is pretty similar in texture, so it might work. All right, so peanut butter. I'm gonna cream this and light and dark brown sugar. My mom, I don't know which one she used. I like putting a little bit of both in there, but you could certainly just use light or just use dark. But I'm gonna do 3/4 of a cup of dark and a half of light. And another thing to note, especially when you're baking, it's good to pack the brown sugar in your measuring cups. So let's see, 3/4 of dark. So I'm just gonna scoop into here, and you can just use like the side of the carton here of the canister to pack it in. So I need 3/4, so that's 1. Just kind of push it. 2, 3. And I have gotten some questions before. I know I've talked about these before, but these little canisters, I really, really like them. I have them for my flour and brown sugars, but for brown sugar, it's got this little terracotta piece in here, and you just soak it in water for a few minutes, blot it dry, and then you stick it up here, and it keeps everything from kind of clumping and being rock hard. So I like that. And then the other alternative that I have in my light brown sugar is this little bear. It's the same thing. It's just terracotta, and you soak it in cold water so that the moisture in there absorbs into the brown sugar. It keeps everything nice. So squeeze in half a cup of light. All right, then milk and vanilla. I need 3 tablespoons of milk. I forgot to get that out because I'm like kind of weird about milk. I don't like letting it sit out any longer than absolutely necessary, because I don't know if you've ever accidentally had spoiled milk. It's really gross. All right. So 3 tablespoons. Oven is already preheated. Three tablespoons here. And then a tablespoon of vanilla extract. Did I say a tablespoon? That can't be right. It is a tablespoon. Okay. Is this right? That seems like a lot of vanilla. One moment. Let me just double check this, because it is entirely possible that I mistyped that. Well, I'm going to use a tablespoon. It might be too much. If it is, I will go back and change it. Okay. I had to convert the recipe from like the TSP, TBS, because I like writing out the full name, and I might have goofed that. It's kind of another thing I like about doing these is seeing if I got everything right. Okay, so peanut butter shortening, dark and light brown sugars, milk and vanilla, and then we're going to beat it with an electric mixer until it's really well blended. You can use a stand mixer if you want. I like using a hand mixer for this particular recipe. Oh, and I'm using, woo, somebody left that on. I'm using a bowl that has a grippy base. It's like, this is an OXO bowl, but the side, it's like rubber, so it won't spin around when you're mixing things. All right. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put it in first before you turn it on, or you're gonna splatter things everywhere. Do you guys have any fun food things going on this weekend? I'm trying a new restaurant tomorrow with some friends. All right, so what I like to do is after I mix it like that, I just take a spatula and just kind of make sure I scoop the bottom and the sides in case I missed mixing anything in. Well, the vanilla smells awesome, so we'll see. All right, now I'm going to add an egg and just beat it in until it's just blended. I don't want to like mix it in too much. All right, next is flour, salt, and baking soda. So I'm gonna do 1 3/4 cups of flour. This is the same type of canister that I have for these. And when it's a little tricky with my tripod here, but let me see if I can show you. When I'm baking especially, I like to scoop and sweep to measure. So instead of taking the measuring cup in here and squishing it against the wall, which will compress the flour and give you probably more than you want, you can use a spoon, or if you have a scoop, you just kind of lightly overfill it over the container, and then you can swipe it across with this. This one's got a little built-in, it comes off, but this one you can use to level. So I'm going to put that in there. That's our 1. And this is all-purpose flour. So 3/4. Got a lot of measuring cups out here today. 1/3. So there's a 1/2. And then a 1/4. I'm gonna scoop this one off over the sink. All right. So 1 3/4 cups of flour. Baking soda, 3/4 of a teaspoon. One, 2, 3, and 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. I do that over the sink because salt, if you get too much in there, it's going to be not good, but salt does help make things taste sweeter. So, all right, flour, salt, and baking soda, and then blend it until it's just incorporated. So you don't want to like let it go for a long time. No fun food plans yet. Hoping to find time to make cookies though. Oh, if you try these, let me know what you think. So at first it's going to give you like a little bit of a dust storm. So I like to stop when I'm about here and scrape everything again. Don't normally have a tripod on my countertop, but for you guys, I'm just going to scrape the extra stuff off my spatula also. And then, actually that looks pretty good, so I'm going to pop the beaters out. And I have to find this, see if I can find this particular hand mixer to put in my Amazon shop, because it comes with this little like holster that pops right in there, and then the beaters stand up right there, and then it's got space on the bottom so you can put the cord inside. And I don't know, something about having a vertical storage, it's good, especially for a small kitchen. So just sits like that. We keep it in a compartment above our refrigerator. So I'm gonna use my spatula to just get the extra out of here, and I'll probably save a little bit on the beaters because it's delicious. Not that I am telling you to eat raw eggs. There are risks involved with that, but they are risks that I personally am willing to take. So we got that. If my son was here, he would be all over this. But he's in school. Let's get all the extra out. I remember when I was a kid, my grandma used to I'd be like, stop cleaning them so good, because I always wanted to eat the rest of what was on the beater. And I feel like it's like one of the best parts of baking, especially as a kid. All right, so I got that in there. And then since there's still a little bit of flour, I'm just going to kind of stir it instead of beating it more so that I don't overmix it too much. All right, so I got all the main streaks out of there. All right, and then all you need to do is get about a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar in a little, on a plate or in a bowl. That's not an exact amount, that's just an approximation. I'm gonna roll cookie dough balls around in it. What's the worst that could happen? Well, I don't know. Does anybody actually know anybody who's had salmonella issues? Also, if you crack the egg on the counter instead of on the edge of the bowl, it cracks it more flat and it doesn't make shards that go into the egg, so there's less chance of getting any sort of contamination in there, if that's useful to you. All right, so I just have the sugar like this. Just gonna clean this up a little. Lots of measuring cups today. All right. Ungreased cooking sheets. These are half sheet pans. Most people call this a sheet pan. It's really half. A sheet pan is twice this size and usually used in restaurants. I like using a scoop to dish out my cookie dough for any type of cookies that are like round like this. But for these particular ones, I do also roll them in my hand because I feel like it helps get them that nice smooth surface. I did some both ways when I posted the recipe, and the ones that I didn't roll were a little more like kind of broken around the edges. So instead of being like fully round, they were like a little crackly. It's fine, but and I like using number 50 scoop. If you look on the inside, I don't know if you can see that on there, but there's a little number printed in there. It says 50 on the little piece that swipes across to get the cookie dough off. So just for like a kind of guide, this is about a heaping tablespoon. And in my post on my site, I linked it in the chat, there's I linked to a resource that gives you like the measurement equivalents for all the different sizes of scoops. So like this is a 50, this one is 30, this one is 16. I think I use this one for like dishing out muffins, cupcakes. This is also, good for ice cream. So are these if you want like little itty bitties. So just to kind of give you an idea. Raw dough apparently has 2 risks. The raw egg, but also something about raw flour has risks as well. But I've never heard of anyone getting sick. It's probably lawyers covering every possible issue. Yeah, I've heard that lately. You're supposed to like toast your flour or don't eat it raw, but I don't know. I haven't. So I'm just going to take my cookie scoop and go in here and just kind of flatten it against the edge of the bowl. And then I'm going to take my rings off because it's going to be pretty messy. So I just like scoop it right into my hand, roll it around really lightly because it's sticky to get it nice and smooth, and then put it in the sugar, and you can just toss it around. This is also really fun for kids to help with. So I'll do 12 on each sheet, and I'll do the first 12 and I'll put it in the oven while I make the other ones so that this doesn't take too long for you guys. But just usually, I feel like people know that, but you never know. Sometimes some people might try to cram a bunch more onto there. You need to leave room for them to spread. So they don't spread a ton, but 12 is a good number at this size. You could totally do smaller or bigger. You're just going to need to accommodate more or less space on your baking sheet, and also you might need to adjust the baking time depending. So my son loves doing this. I loved making them with my mom. All right, so I told this story in the post on my website, but for those of you who are here and want to hear it, years ago when I was dating my husband, I was visiting New York because I was in college out in Wisconsin. So I was visiting New York and visiting his family, and we were going to a birthday party at a friend's house or some sort of gathering. And I was like, oh, can we bring anything? And they said dessert. So I said, cool, like, can I, I'll make these peanut butter cookies. I've been making them forever. They always work. They're definitely going to be good. So I had his mom show us where all the ingredients were, like the pantry and whatever. And I made these peanut butter cookies, and they were like rocks. They were disgusting. I don't know. We couldn't figure out what happened. And my husband's like, show me everything that you used. And I showed him. Everything looked fine. And we got his mom, and we were like, hey, what's going on with this? Oh, well, that's pancake mix. Like, my husband said, the container marked flour is pancake mix. And she's like, yeah. Like, it was a totally normal thing to keep pancake mix in a flour container. And not just a container that looked like it should hold flour, one that said flour. So she neglected to tell us that before I made them. They were awful. My father-in-law was like, oh, no, they're great. I'll eat them. I was like, no, I'm going to make another batch. Luckily, they had enough stuff, and we found the actual flour. But it was the only time these have ever failed me, and they were awful. But, afterward we laughed about it, and it's something that, I don't know, now it makes me think of him. So it's pretty funny. All right, these are going to go in the oven for about 7 to 8 minutes. Ooh, look, they're like really slippery because of the sugar. They just slid everywhere. Oh, wait a minute. I almost forgot the most important part. So take a fork and you press down lightly in a little crosshatch pattern. So you just like rotate it 90 degrees. Some people don't roll the peanut butter cookies in sugar first. They just dip the fork, like they roll the fork in sugar. But I like the kind of crispiness that the sugar coating adds, and it makes it easy to just kind of go through and mark up all your cookies. This also super fun for kids. Really hope nobody at my son's bus stop has a peanut allergy because I'm going to bring these today. Okay, so now they're all marked and they're ready to go in the oven. I'm going to check them after 7 minutes. just in case, but you know, ovens vary. All right, and then I have my second sheet. Is this just, I've got peanut butter on my sponge. Just want to make sure this wasn't anything other than cookie stuff on here. Let's see. Glad you had enough time to make another batch. Yeah, seriously. It was, and of course it was like, this was, you know, before I had my website, which, you know, I've had for 13 years now. So it's like, it was a long time ago. I wasn't cooking and baking all the time yet, but I was so embarrassed. And he just, like, that's just, my father-in-law was the type of guy who would like never complain about anything. He's so funny. So it's a nice memory. Do you guys have favorite cookies that you make, like at the holiday time or whatever? These ones for me, like, I mean, I love a chocolate chip cookie. Somebody on Instagram, when I posted these, was saying that they like doing these with like pieces of Reese's peanut butter cup or chocolate chips in there, which sounds delicious, or chunks, because chocolate chips and chocolate chunks are two very different things texture-wise. I like these. I like my grandma's, like, she called them Christmas cookies. Just, you know, they're like roll-out sugar cookies that you use cookie cutters for. That's actually, I think that's the first Facebook Live I did last year. Those ones are a lot of fun, and they're really soft, and they hold up very, very well. I've mailed them. They're a little delicate, like you could get some broken pieces, but they still taste amazing. And what else? Ricotta cookies. I think I've done those on Facebook Live also. Those I like making around the holidays, and they make a ton. So those ones are a good option for a crowd. I haven't tried making these with almond butter or anything like that. So I'm not sure if that would change anything. I feel like almond butter tends to be a little grittier than peanut butter. So I would proceed with caution. I mean, I'm sure it would still taste good. I'm just not totally sure what the texture would be like. Because as much as I love baking, I don't consider myself like a baker. Like, I would not do well on the Great British Bake Off because I don't know, the whole like scientific measurements of things is a little tricky for me. Snickerdoodles. Yes, I love snickerdoodles. I have 2 different snickerdoodle recipes on my website, I think. One of them I made on here before, that's got like chai spices and tea that are ground up into it, into the coating. So you roll them kind of similarly to this recipe. So these, when they come out of the oven, they'll be a little, like, they're really soft. So I like to let them sit on the baking sheet for a minute or 2 before I transfer them to a cooling rack. They're delicious when they're still hot, but I like using a cooling rack. It's one of these guys, like just a little metal rack. It's a wire rack. These ones are oven proof. Some of them aren't, and like it's got like little stands, so it keeps it elevated above the counter, so the air can circulate all the way around them while they're cooling, to help them cool evenly and completely. So this is my second batch. I'm gonna just let these hang out on the side since I have that one in the oven. But I do have another cookie sheet, so I might as well. Like, okay, so here's an example. This is a different type of baking sheet. This one's textured. It's clean. It's just the stuff markings are on it. But this is a nonstick baking sheet from OXO. I find that you don't really need a nonstick baking sheet with this recipe or cookie recipes that have shortening in them. I feel like they usually come off no problem. But that baking sheet came with this type of cooling rack, which it's nice because it's got like this little raised area, but it's coated in something that I'm not 100% sure is oven proof, but it nests like right into there, so it's kind of nice. And I'm not sure if this is the kind you can stack if you had more than one. like for cooling. Pretty convenient. So let's see, we got maybe 2 minutes left, maybe more. Oh, I started teaching cooking classes again here in Ossining at the library this week, Wednesday. And I showed the kids how to make pasta salad skewers and then antipasto pasta salad. So it was to show them that you can use mostly the same ingredients and get two like totally different looking recipes. And it was a big hit. The skewers especially, like food on a stick is just always fun. So they really liked that. Plus you can, the dressing is optional in that we made a creamy balsamic vinaigrette that I based off of actually Capri Pizza and Pasta here in Ossining. Their house creamy balsamic is delicious. And yes, I was eating cookie dough. It's really, really good. And some of the kids, balsamic is one of those things that I knew it would be a gamble getting teenagers to try it. But then I figured, what if they love it? Some of them really, really did love it. One of the girls was like, this is the best dressing ever. Oh my gosh. And I told her where the restaurant that I based it from, and she said that's like one of her favorite restaurants. So she was very excited that now she can make that at home. And that really is part of what makes it worth it to me, like getting them excited about cooking at home or for their families, for themselves, and just seeing that, you don't have to go out, please, it's fun, but you can also make great stuff at home. And maybe that'll get them thinking about, like, if I have a meal out somewhere and I really like something, maybe I could figure out how to make it because somebody made it, So let's see if these are ready. So these look a little bit light still, a little bit. I'm just going to leave them in for another minute and a half. They don't get brown, but they looked a little bit shiny still, and I think that's they're not quite cooked enough. I'll add that to my recipe notes for an indicator of when they're done. That's one of the other things I've been doing lately is going back to a lot of my older recipes. Since I've been writing recipes when I started over 13 years ago, I was not writing my own recipes. I was just experimenting in the kitchen, trying other people's stuff, and I'd always, link to where I found the things and what I thought of them, or if I changed things. But now going back to some of my older recipes, I like, just testing them and seeing do these still work? Is there a better way to do it? Is there a way to make these where it uses less dishes? Because that's always a good thing. This should make about 3 dozen, and it looks like I'm going to just get there. If you're using the scoop, they hold up well. Once they're totally cooled, you can put them in an airtight container. They hold up well for a few days. If they stay for that long. I don't think they've ever made it past 3 days here. So, just again, gonna mark these guys. They do if you move them too fast, since they're so slippery with the shortening, they kind of jump off the counter or off the baking sheet. Okay, let's check on those. Let's see. All right, so these, I'm gonna let them sit for 2 minutes. I feel like my screen's making them look a little darker than they are. They don't get very dark, but you can kind of see it's starting to get a little toasted looking. They don't need to be, so they're fine like this. I'm just gonna let these cool for a minute or two before I take them off and show you how pillowy, beautifully soft they are, and hopefully don't burn myself eating one. These cookies are super with milk. Milk and cookies is classic, but I don't always require milk with my cookies. These ones, I really do. And then this looks like I've got enough to make maybe 2 more cookies past that last dozen. So I'm going to put the other 2 in the oven, the other 2 dozen. And I'm going to put them in for, I'm going to do 9 minutes. Okay, so let me move this out of the way. They wouldn't last until being fully cooled. Yeah, many of them don't. They're really, really, really good. All right, so cooling rack is ready. They've been sitting for like a minute. Where's my spatula? Here we go. This is my favorite spatula for cookies. It's a really thin, I think I've showed you guys before. It's like super thin and bendy. It's great for if you're doing rollout cookies on a counter and you need to transfer them and it's sticking a little, you can just like slide it right under because it's really good for that type of thing. And it's good for getting under cookies that are really delicate like these because they're still hot and soft. So if you go to get under there and it starts pulling apart, just leave it for another minute or 2 before you move them. So you can see they're pretty even from using the cookie scoop. I mean, like this one looks a little bit smaller, but that's okay. And this one's got a chunk of sugar. But I'm pretty sure it'll taste good. That was from the coating. All right, so see if I can. I don't want to burn myself. Let me see if I had any other announcements. Oh, the other thing I made, the antipasto pasta salad with the teenagers was same dressing but tossed together, and you can use any kind of pasta you want. We used the same tortellini that we used in the skewers, and it was great. And yeah, it was a big hit. I think this week we're going to do pancakes. So if you have a teenager in Ossining Public Library on Wednesday next week, so the October 2nd, 4:30 to 6. 4:30 to 6. The next fall session, so I'm doing this for 2 more weeks, and then the next fall session is going to be a little earlier. I think we're going to do 3:30 to 5. So, all right. Here's the cookie in all of its glory. I mean, right? It's like, bring it over here too in case that didn't work. So, nice little soft, delicious cookie. Oh yeah. So this brings me back to my childhood. I hope you try it and like it. If you do, tag me on social media at Big Flavors. You can use hashtag #CookBigFlavors. I like, especially on Instagram, I share them in my story when people cook my recipes. And I managed to finally get my Instagram stories to sync back with Facebook again. The capability turned off for a while, so now if you're not on Instagram, my stories should be coming through on my Facebook page also. Thank you for joining me. Have a great weekend, and I will see you guys next week.